Welcome to the Prospect Podcast on a Thursday morning. Coach Schumann, I have Coach DePasco with me to my left, and then I have our great guest today, offensive coordinator of Bixby High School out in Oklahoma. The top offense and one of the top programs in the whole entire country. And they have a fantastic, if you watch anything on the internet, you're going to come across Bixby highlights at some point. Their offense is and the team's fantastic, but their offense is what has gotten a lot of widespread acknowledgement throughout the country. They score a ton of points, and they score them in bunches, and they have a unique style of play where they will pull almost anybody to the ball, and they do a lot of different things from an offensive standpoint with respect to getting different guys the ball, different guys throwing the ball, different guys running the ball, different guys passing it, and all different types of stuff to really take advantage of the defense. It's a fantastic offensive system, and it's really one of the most innovative out there right now, maybe the most innovative. So we have the guy who is currently running that offense. He's the offensive coordinator, Coach Schneider. So, Coach Schneider, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on today.
Appreciate you guys having me. It's always fun to get to talk about Bixby Spartan football.
No doubt about it. And after we get off the podcast, I want to make a date where I can come out there and spend some time with you guys, learn a little bit of that offense, and bring that to the team that I'm coaching. After coaching 20 years of high school ball, I coach my son's team at 10. Actually, it'll be 11U next year, and we do a lot of great stuff, and we admire a lot of the things that you guys do. We've mirrored some of those things to some great success. So I want to go out there and learn more from you guys. But it's really, really great having you on the show. Talk a little about your career, where you came from as an athlete, as a coach, and how you got to Bixby, and the genesis of you becoming an ops coordinator and your role within this offensive system.
Yeah, it's not a long story because I've been at Bixby for so long, but I started off, I played 4A football here in Oklahoma, in Western Oklahoma. Played football, basketball, and baseball. Growing up, played soccer. When I got to high school, I couldn't do 4. There wasn't enough time. So I played 3 sports. Then I went to an NAI school, Southern Nazarene University here. It's right by Oklahoma City. Played 4 years there. Finished up playing there. Did a year of internship or student teaching while I was finishing my degree with Mustang, Oklahoma, a school right outside of Oklahoma City. Was super fortunate. Got to work for one of the first guys in Oklahoma that was running four wide receiver sets, spreading the ball around, kind of some of the first air raid in Oklahoma, and got good at am I the one echoing there? Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay. Got to coach with Coach Prestige for a season. Had a great year. We were 12-1. Really a lot of fun. Then I knew that I wanted to get my master's just to open future doors possibly. So I went to Northwest Iowa, Dordt College at the time. It's now Dordt University, and was there for the very first varsity season of football at Dordt University. So it was tough. We won our very first game and then lost 20 in a row the 2 years that I was there. So learned a lot about coaching. Kind of couldn't take anything for granted. Coached every little detail. Which was probably good for me as a young coach. I couldn't just roll the ball out there and let good players do their thing. Dordt is now awesome. They're a playoff team. I think they maybe even won their conference this year. They're doing a really good job now. Finished up with my master's. I wanted to come closer to home. Started applying for jobs. Was working an air conditioning job with one of my high school buddies' dads back in my hometown. Coach Montgomery here at Bixby called me when I was knee-deep in insulation in an attic. And an interview, and I left, nearly right then. I was there the next morning to interview here at Bixby. Got the job. That was in 2011, and have been here ever since. My first year in Bixby, it was kind of a unique setup. Coach Montgomery had been offensive coordinator at his previous stop before becoming a head coach. It was his second year of head coaching. So we kind of split the play calling duties. I called pass plays and he called run plays. So it was always his call. He would just either call a play or he'd say, let's throw it here. And I'd have a pass play ready to go. So did that for a season. And then my second season in 2012, he turned it over to me full time. I was a full-time play caller, offensive coordinator. Starting in 2012, we were getting better. We weren't very good, but we were improving each year. I think my first year we were 3-8, and then 4-6, and then 6-4. And then 2014 in Oklahoma, they split the largest class because the variance in teams was so large. The largest school in the state at that time was about 5,000 kids. We were the 32nd largest school in the state at the time with, I think we had 1,200 kids. So there was just a huge gap. So they split it in two, creating a 6A2. And so then 2014 was our first season in 6A2, and that was our first state championship. And then we've played in the state championship game every year since. So been a pretty wild ride. We're now in 6A1. We're still the lower part of the bigger class as far as enrollment goes, but we're in the big class now. The last 4 seasons we've been in the biggest class.
It's amazing. That's an amazing ride, and the fact that you sustained that level of success for such a long time too, once you guys built it up, is incredible. Talk about how you started to evolve your thought process as far as offense. Like, I think it's really interesting that you brought up like the first part where you were at Dortch and struggled in the beginning, and how it taught you to coach every single part of football, right? Every single element to it. And having been in a similar situation years ago, I understand what that means, right? Because when you realize that you might be at a disadvantage from a physical standpoint or a talent standpoint, you're trying to coach them just to get them to a point where they can compete, right? And people don't realize that that's like kind of the first step. If your program is got to get to that point first, right? And then you can start to try, hopefully recruit and attract athletes, but you learn a lot from that process because you realize you could see guys getting better, even if the W's weren't clicking from that standpoint. You were seeing progress, right? And it taught you to see progress in small instances where it may not be about the W's at that time. And then when you got into a place like Bixby, when you're building that up, you probably were ready to be able to handle those kind of things. And you could see the progress until you obviously got to the point where you start to be really good. Talk about that learning process and the importance of that element in your development as a coach.
Yeah. In Dort, it was tough. It made me decide, do I really like coaching, or do I just like the game of football? Losing 20 games in a row was tough. Ended up my first 5 games at Bixby, we lost 2. So I've had a 25-game losing streak in my career. And then a couple years ago, we had a 58-game winning streak, so I've been on both ends of it. It is tough, but I think it was good. Because like I said, it made me a better coach because I had to coach everything. For example, one day at Dort, we were giving the kids, it was kind of a recovery day. So we were just going to play, a pickup football game. And one of the kids said, "Coach, can I be all-time flipper?" And I don't know what that is, man. What are you talking about? Like, what's the flipper? And he's like, the guy that flips it back to the quarterback. He's talking about being the center, the snapper. So like, that's kind of where the type of kids that we were coaching, Right. So imagine starting at that base point. There was a lot of coaching to be done, and I think for me as a young coach, that was really good. I had to learn how to coach.
Absolutely.
And then coming to Bixby, huge benefit to get to be here under Coach Montgomery. His standard is very high, and it's difficult at times, but I think that's what we want to be as competitors, is to have that type of standard and lived up to that type of standard. Coaches on our coaching staff will see the way other staffs do things, and we think, man, like, I'm sure I'm glad I didn't come up in that system, because I would probably be doing those things as well. I'm glad I came up under Coach Montgomery who I know he would credit the way he coaches to Coach Alan Trimble, who he coached under for 10 years.
Mhm.
One of the best, if not the best, high school football coach in Oklahoma history. So
that was Jenks, right? He coached that, or
yeah, he's across the river at Jinx. Yep.
Yep.
So it's been a lot of growth, a lot of learning, and like I said, I've been super fortunate to get to be a part of this staff for as long as I have been, and work with a lot of really, really good guys that have made me better for sure. Coach Montgomery, our head coach, and then Coach Flowers, our defensive coordinator. He got here my second year, so he's been here 14 seasons. So working with those guys for the large majority of my coaching career has been very beneficial to me.
What is it about the Bixby system? Some of the things philosophically that you guys approach from an offensive standpoint that has contributed to, long before we get to plays and play calling. What is the philosophy? What is some of the things that you guys have a core value system that really has helped you guys propel from an offensive standpoint?
Not to dodge your question, but kind of the way we operate here in Bixby is it's all the program. Like,
right.
I put as much work and energy and desire into off-season workouts and developing the kids as athletes and as people. And like the play calling on Friday night is the fun part. It's the cherry on the top. We dedicate a lot of time, effort, energy into being the very best at developing our student athletes. We've got in-school strength and conditioning. We work out in the summers like everybody does, but like our guys, our football program is a 12-month program for sure.
Right.
I think we've counted it up before, and our kids, I don't want to say it makes it sound like we're super extreme, but they're away from us 5 weeks out of the year, right? They're training with us. What would that be? 47 weeks out of the year. They play other sports and do those things, but we're in the weight room with them. We're seeing them. We're talking to them, those type of things. So that's kind of the foundation of all of it. It's the program is the most important thing. Myself, our other assistants, we understand that if we don't develop the kids and develop the program, the offensive side of things aren't going to matter. And Coach Flowers on defense is the same way. If I can devote 8 months to getting our kids bigger, faster, and stronger, well, then calling the defense is a lot easier and a lot more fun. Mm-hmm. Same idea with the offense. But as far as our offensive philosophy, it changes because we're at a high school, right? We don't get to recruit the guys we want. We play with kids that grew up in Bixby for the most part. So we've had seasons where we've had a wide receiver with 100 catches and 1,500 yards, and we've had seasons where we've had 4 wide receivers with 500 yards each. This last season, something that we were pretty proud of offensively, we had 23 guys, I believe it was, score a touchdown, which is cool. So we want to be an offense that can spread the ball around, kind of go back to the Mike Leach quote about balanced football isn't 50% run, 50% pass. It's as many guys touching the football as you can, because we feel that makes you harder to defend, right? Mm-hmm. We listen to our defensive guys, and when they talk about, hey, they only throw it to this guy and they only hand it to this guy, that lets them kind of zero in on how to defend those things. So we want to spread the ball around, use as many different guys as we can. We're not afraid to snap it to a bunch of different guys. I think a couple seasons ago we snapped it to 7 or 8 different guys throughout the season. I think 7 guys threw a pass, different things like that. So kind of in short is we want to use as many good players as we can and use them in the ways that they're good at. If that's probably an oversimplification, but that's kind of where we base our offense from.
No doubt. What does that 12-month program look like? Like, what is your off season like? What are some of the things that you guys focus on and the structure of that program?
So we just finished our season 2 weeks ago. It'll be 2 weeks on Saturday. Our kids were right back in the weight room on Monday, hitting their lifts. And now it's an intelligently programmed, right? We're not in there killing them, doing that kind of stuff. But they're doing their 12-month programming. Our strength coach, we have in-school strength and conditioning, like I mentioned. So he's programming out 12 months. He's programming it to know where he needs to be in his programming when spring ball hits, where he needs to be in his programming when two-a-days hits, when playoffs hit, all those type of things. So they're lifting 4 days a week, year-round. When we come back in the spring in January, we'll kind of just focus in on lifting through most of January and February. Then once we get into March, we'll start doing kind of a little bit more. I hate saying sports specific, but more field work, change of direction, that type of stuff during the football hour. If they're in another sport, I've coached track for 7 years here. Those guys aren't doing that because we feel like they're filling that bucket on the track. Our baseball guys are filling that bucket on the baseball diamond, but they do still have a strength and conditioning hour. So they may have been in strength and conditioning 3rd hour in the day, and then they go to their sport 7th hour type of deal. So that'll get us through March and April. April, we'll kind of start firing up like position meetings, maybe once a week in the morning, talking to our guys, introducing some of the new stuff we're going to try in spring ball. And then in spring ball, we have 4 weeks of spring ball. In Oklahoma, you can have 10 padded practices.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then 1 team camp, or you can forego spring ball practices and do 2 team camps. We choose to do the 10 padded practices. So we'll do actually 3 total practices. We do 10 helmets only, just installing everything. A lot of times our multi-sport guys are still at their spring sport when we do that. And then by the time we start the padded practices, we start those after the baseball state championship, the track, state track meet, all those things, so that we got all of our guys. We'll hit our 9 or 10 padded practices, and then we host a team camp here where we'll bring in 6 to 8 schools from all over. East St. Louis comes down from Illinois. We'll have some Northwest Arkansas teams come. Some Tulsa area schools will be there. And we do that for 3 days. Get after it, lots of scrimmaging, lots of reps. We'll get as many reps in those 3 days as we probably do the first half of the season, as far as play count.
Absolutely.
And then we give the kids a week off, and then we start our summer programming. And summer programming is it's about an hour and a half a day, 4 days a week, really focusing on strength and speed, getting our kids powerful and fast. Do that throughout the summer. Go to a couple 7-on-7 tournaments during the summer. And then whenever we hit, what we would have called back when we played 2-a-days, it's not 2-a-days anymore, right? It's just fall practice. The way that we've built it is our install happened in the spring. So when we start fall practice, we are in game plan mode. We're preparing for our week 0 opponent that very first practice. So we just hit the ground running and we're right into it and rock and roll. And then it's season time, right? And we're probably pretty similar to everyone else during the season.
No doubt. Now, you talked a lot about like the strength and speed program. What are the elements that you guys philosophically believe as far, and you're a track coach, so you probably have a good background in this. Like, what are some of the important things that you guys believe from a speed development and explosive standpoint?
We do a lot of explosive lifting, right? A lot of unilateral, if I'm saying that right, single leg work. We're really big on cleans, full cleans, power cleans, hang cleans. We'll do all different variations. A lot of explosive work in the weight room. We measure jumps a lot. On the field, we're going to measure sprints, work once a week. Don't necessarily agree with all of the tenets of the feed the cat stuff, but the court rank published, we're definitely big on that. We started a program in the summer during our summer pride. We call it the rack. So the kids, we've got a rack right in the middle of the room. It's under the American flag. It's kind of where the dudes go, right? Center of the room, center of attention, and they have to earn their way onto the rack. So we'll have, so say week 1, the rack's empty because no one's earned it yet. In that first week, we'll measure something in the weight room. We'll measure something on the field every day. We'll rank it, post it, and then the top 6 guys, 3 on each side of the rack, will earn to get to be at the rack the next week. So that's been a big deal for us. I think it's been really good as far as dialing in intent and focus. When the kids know that they're being measured on something, you get a different level of intensity. So we do that. We give them helmet stickers if they make the rack. They get, the nicest barbell, those type of things. The thing that the kids really like is whoever's on the rack gets to control the aux cord. So they're music.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Yep, that's a big deal for them. So, and then they get a picture posted on social media. We have a pretty big social media presence. We want to celebrate our kids as in many ways as we can, and social media is one of those ways. So that's kind of in a nutshell. We're gonna lift fast, build power through that, and then we believe that the best way to get faster is to run fast. So we're going to sprint In the summer, it's probably 2 times a week, but in the offseason, we want to hit at least 1 time a week max velocity in sprinting. And then we held true with that in the season as well. We've got the GPS like a bunch of guys do now, so we can track those guys and seeing who's hit max speed, who's hit 70% of their max speed, who's got this many high-speed yardage. Do we need to pull them back in practice? Do they need to sprint more in practice? All those things as well.
Interesting. I'm curious with the feed the cat stuff. Where do you differ from what they kind of talk about? I'm just curious. Like some of the things philosophically that you embrace that might be different from what they kind of talk about. I know the right quarter, but we've had them on a bunch of times, so and there's a lot of guys that have different ways of thinking. So I'm just curious, especially since you guys have had so much success. What
our biggest deal? I think they really hit the nail on the head with record, rank, publish. I think that's the biggest thing we've stolen. I mean, that is number one. We also run the flies, measure them, celebrate 20 mile an hour, all that kind of stuff. I think the biggest difference is the sports. Feed the Cats bases on track, and I think it's great. When I coached track, we did mostly Feed the Cats, right? Healthy athlete over an in shape athlete. All those things we're on board with. I think the biggest difference is the way that we approach the weight room, because in the game of football, there's going to be a time that there's somebody trying to stop you from sprinting as fast as you can. There's a time that you move somebody. You've got to it's a little bit different style of strength and power that the game of football requires. So in the weight room, we're going to differ a little bit. We're still going to do a lot of the explosive lifts, but you at some point in football, you've got to put on some mass. Mass moves mass, right? You've got to put on some muscle. You've got to gain weight. You've got to get bigger, those type of things. Now, I completely agree with them that when you look in the NFL combine, the highest drafted linemen are the fastest, most explosive ones. So we still want to train our guys to be athletes, but at some point they've got to get some of that volume training, some of that mass accumulation, those type of things in the weight room. So I'd say that's kind of where we're the biggest, and it's not a huge difference, but just a little bit different ideas.
Yeah, and I think in football there is that balance that's required where like when I see workouts on like some of the top Olympic sprinters and stuff, like you're right, they don't have to get hit, they don't have to do hitting, so
and track.
Yeah, they could be so focused on the absolutely, that fine-tuning element of that little extra that little extra bit of speed really does benefit them, whereas there's a balance with football where you want to have a certain speed relative to size ratio that you want to have per position, right? Because otherwise you have an element where some guys might not survive if they don't have some of those. So and that makes a ton of sense. And obviously also body-wise, being able to understand where the stability part of football comes in, where you have to be able to sometimes hold your ground,
right?
Or like you said, move a guy, right? So, which is different, definitely different. That's why I asked, because it is interesting, and there's so many different offshoots of a lot of different things, and I think one of the things that's important informationally is that people get the appropriate thing that applies to them and their situation, right?
And I would say we agree with most of their core.
Right.
Don't burn the steak.
Right.
Happy and healthy athletes are better. I'd rather have a 100% healthy and 90% in shape athlete versus a 100% in shape and 90% healthy.
100%.
All of those things. We don't condition in practice. Our practice is the conditioning. Like all of those things, we've been doing that for a long time, and we're on board with that stuff. It's just a little bit of the weight room is a little bit different, Just track and football are different sports when it comes down to it.
No doubt. It makes perfect sense. Because I just saw Signetti just talk about, or I saw his AFCA thing, his AFCA thing, where he's talking about being fast and fresh and healthy, and so it's interesting because it's great. I think it's great that a college coach is actually saying that and having a ton of success, because high school coaches like yourself have been doing this already for a long time, and college coaches wouldn't say it. You know what I mean? I like that Signetti's willing to say exactly what he's doing, just like Lane does.
Whatever, isn't he?
What's that?
He's willing to say just about anything. I think.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Him and Lane might be the two guys that are willing to let it fly more than anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, Lane Kiffin kind of says the same thing. Like, he's a little different, his personality, obviously, but as far as like, he's not trying to stay in the field the whole time, and like hours on end, trying to make sure that they're able to play and those kind of things. So, it's really, really interesting. Talk about the genesis of your play calling. And how you started to fit things into what you had each year, and how did that start to drive how you created the different play variations each year? Like, talk about that, because there's a lot of coaches that don't understand that you could change things and kids will learn it. You know what I mean? So to talk about that, I want you to talk about that, because and you probably see it, right? Teams you play and stuff like that. But talk about that and how that kind of came to fruition for you.
Yeah, just to start off, what you mentioned there, kids are way smarter than we give them credit for. They can do way more than you think, way more than we thought. We pushed the envelope and have realized, man, they can handle a lot of this, so they can do it. But kind of how we got to where we are, another benefit of being in the same place for 15 years and coaching with the same, essentially the same staff that whole time. Our O-line coach has been with us for 14 seasons. We had a wide receiver coach that had been with us for 11 seasons. He just went and took an OC job. This year was his first year doing that. Our running back coach, special teams coordinator, was here since 2018. So in doing that, our tight end coach got here in 2018. So in doing that, it's been a 15-year build, if that makes sense. Instead of we built an offense in 2014, 2015, 2016, and then went and took a new job, and we had to reinstall all of that. Instead of that, in 2017, we were just adding to what we already had in. And we've gotten to the point now, and I noticed it even more this year because we had a new wide receiver coach, and he's doing a great job. But he mentioned after the season we were talking about, how the first season go those times, he's like, man, sometimes on Sundays when we're game planning, you guys go off on a tangent, and I have no idea what you're talking about, because we may say, hey, remember whenever we used this tag in 2022 against this team? I think that'll be good against this particular defense. And he's like, what are you guys like? I wasn't here in 2022 or whatever. So it's been just kind of a long build. The three-puller stuff, that's one thing that we get questions about. That was out of necessity when we were playing a crazy 3-3 stack, but they all stand up and walk around, eat the captain defense. And we decided, man, we really need an extra puller over there to kind of clean up that third safety or that extra linebacker, whatever it is. So we put that tag in, and it worked well. And so that's been in our game plan since whenever that was, 2020, 2019, whenever it was. And so we just kind of build on those things. And now not every single year, we're not going to run all of the things that we've ever installed, but we've got a pretty good menu that we can pull from, as well as add new things too. So we went back a couple years ago and we watched our 2014 state championship game, and it was funny because we're such a different offense now. It was very, very different, but the base principles are still there. We want to be up tempo. We want our kids to play fast and play confident and know what they're doing. We want to be less is more. We don't run very many concepts. We just present them as many different ways as we can. When we started the one-word stuff in 2019, that's when it kind of the different looks really took off. We thought we were adding one words for tempo purposes, which we do use it for that. But really what it became was we're able to say less with more. So we were able to tag more motions, tag more shifts, tag more formation adjustments, those type of things. So we've just kind of been able to add on as we go rather than having to go somewhere new and completely start over. So I think it's been a benefit of being in the same place for a long time, and then also having guys that we've coached with in the same room for the majority of that time, that we can all kind of speak the same language and know what's going on. And we're all streamlined in knowing what we want to be and what we want to do. We don't have a room full of one coach saying, well, we should run this wing T play, and one coach saying we should run this air raid play. And that we all kind of understand who we are, what we're trying to accomplish, and those things. So
that makes a ton of sense. And tagging it allows the flexibility for the offense, especially for the play caller. If you want to be able to get a guy the ball or isolate a guy or send someone in motion with the same exact play, you could do all these different types of things, window dressing. I don't know if you guys tag the lineman at all, but you could guys do that. It's phenomenal. It makes obviously there's an art to it, but it really gives you tremendous flexibility and the ability to call the play that they know, right? And then you're just adding on to it, which is really, really great. Are you guys, does the play call include the formation, or do you call a formation with it, or
it just depends?
Okay. It could be both.
It always did. And then when we started doing the one word stuff, the formation was included in the one word. And so we've built off of that. And now the way we've gotten to it now, like we may end up in 12 personnel tight end wing. For us, that formation is called slot, but we may not ever call that, because the way we got to it this week was by giving it a different name that included a shift and a motion. Right. So it's just this name for this week, instead of saying Y over H jet slot left.
Right.
Maybe that's just radio or whatever. And the kids know that, okay, well, this week, and
that changes week to week, Coach. Not to jump, but that'll change week to week. Like, so you might have and do are the shifts and the motions included in that one word? But that's weekly.
So like that example that I was giving you there, like say radio or monster or whatever you want to give it, that would be like maybe a shift and motion that puts us into this formation, and then we'll carry our strike them out play calls, our fastball, curveball, weak run, strong run, all that stuff. If you guys are familiar with that at all, in that. So like maybe it's monster or radio, and then the play call, 22-5 or whatever the play call is. But then our one word stuff, we have 10 one words that once we set them for the season, those are the same one words all season. That's going to tell formation direction, play direction with that one word, and personnel.
Yep.
Then we can also tag that.
And motion with that too?
No, motion would be a tag on that, because we don't want to ever be with those 10 one words. We don't ever want to be locked into, we have to use this motion. Right. So it's the base version. But say like, and you guys maybe watch some of our stuff, we use college football teams. So let's say we've got Oklahoma, and it's going to tell them personnel, formation direction, play direction. And we can just call Oklahoma, and that tells them everything. They can just go run it, right? We ran that in the state championship this year. But then we could also say move jet Oklahoma. Well, then we would have added a shift, a motion, and then the play. So kind of the way that we build it, the best example or best way to describe it that I've come up with is like we teach the kids a bunch of puzzle pieces, and then as coaches, we put the puzzle together however we see that it will benefit us this week. And as long as they know the puzzle pieces, you can put it together.
Hell yeah.
You want. Instead of move jet Oklahoma, maybe this week mini orbit Oklahoma is a better play for us. Right. They don't care, because they know what move and mini are, and they know what jet and orbit are, and everybody knows what Oklahoma is. So it doesn't matter to them how we put the puzzle together. If that, I don't know if I'm making any sense.
It makes perfect sense. It's funny because I did, and I follow your guys' stuff, and but I was doing this part of this kind of system a long time ago, because the kids were just we had to figure out a way to get these guys to a certain point, and then they started to become really good. But I brought it to my youth team, and we brought it to them, some of these things out of necessity, in a sense that like there's a certain amount of kids that are on the team. Well, we have more than most people have on their team. So like for youth, we had 27 kids, right? So they don't let you split team or anything like that until you have 40. So we had a lot of kids that you have to play. So what we did was exactly that. We created a group that was personnel, set, and play, and then everything was an offshoot from that. And here's the funny part: it was like a couple of our star players with a lot of the backups on the line, right? Because those guys didn't play as much. A lot of the backups, and that group when we started out, we didn't know. We were just hoping to get them their plays because we figured our a couple of our good star athletes could get us the first down. But what happened was that unit became so effective and efficient in running their system, and then we started to tag things off of it. And they actually had the second most touchdowns of any of our unit. And it was really a group of backup. And I learned that from you guys as I watched all this thing. I was like, there has to be a way that they're doing this. And that was kind of one of the things I thought, okay, that would be a good way to do it. That would be easy for these kids to learn too, because some of them were new to football. And it was incredibly effective. And kids are so resilient from that standpoint. I think your point is really valid that they're so resilient because once they get something that they know that they can do, then when you tag stuff on them, they already know they could do this. Cool. I've mastered kind of this part. Now, when you add a couple of tags to it, now you're really not changing things up on them. You're just tweaking it for them, and they become. And when you explain how this makes them more effective, they're like, "Oh wow, okay." The team thinks we're gonna run power every single play, and now we're releasing a guy, and that's just a tag, right? And it's really, really cool. It's amazing what you guys have done from that standpoint. When you guys play other teams, what do you want? Like, what is your goal for the defense to be confused by? So, give you a kind of example. One of the things I always try to think is like simple for our kids for the most part. But when the defensive coordinators look at it, they think, I got to prepare for all this kind of stuff, right? Like there's 9,000 things going on. But for us, that's not actually the truth, right? So right. What is it that you guys are looking to really put the defenses in what kind of situations?
The biggest thing, honestly, is we want to make those 16, 17, 18-year-old kids communicate. I have no doubt that there's plenty of defensive coordinators out there that are better than I am. They're smarter than me. They know how to stop our stuff. But I would like to think that our coaching staff can confuse the 16, 17, 18-year-old kids or disguise our stuff well enough that they're not just teeing off on it. And like I said, we listen a lot to our defensive staff. And when they talk about, hey, in this set, they're going to run these 2 plays or these 3 plays, and they're only going to throw it to this guy when they line up like this. Well, that's true of most offenses, right? Like, Coach Montgomery told me once that one of Coach Trimble's sayings was that if you don't have any tendencies, that means you're not good at anything.
Right.
We have tendencies just like everybody else does. We just want to disguise them. We want to hide them. We want to make them have to see through a bunch of other stuff to see that tendency rather than just line up in a formation and run our base play at them, which we'll do that some too, but we're going to disguise it then with tempo. We're going to do it as fast as we can, those type of things. So there's not so much that I don't know that we trick them. I mean, every now and then, a few times a game, we'll try to run a trick them play, whether it's a gadget or get somebody lost in coverage. But most of the teams we play are pretty well coached, and those coaches are good. So it's hard to do that. But more than anything, we want to hide or disguise the stuff we feel like we're good at so that they aren't able to just tee off on it. We're kind of getting to go against them on their heels a little bit, if maybe that's a good way to say it.
No, it's a great point. The last time I've seen a group, a high school program be as successful as you guys have, and also the coaches where people are like, what are these guys doing, is back when Gus Malzahn was like at Shiloh Christian and then Springdale, right? And I remember this was when I first started coaching, and I, got all of Gus Malzahn's communication books as far as like no huddle.
Same one, yeah.
Yeah, you remember that book?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And how he had the body clock and everything. And I read that thing cover to cover, and I'm like, can I communicate this way? And we used parts of it, and we used different parts. But it was it was really, really interesting because I would go back and forth and I would email Gus Malzahn, and a couple of years later he ended up going to Arkansas with he had that class that was unbelievable at Springdale, and with the quarterback but he would always get back. He was great because he would always get back. He'd be like, "Hey, I do this, or I try to do that," and it was so interesting because that was before you guys came out and developed the explosive system that you guys had. That's what it reminds me of because they were having such dominant success. He had it at Child Christian and at Springdale, and that's what reminds me of that same kind of thing, which is it's a tribute to. Obviously, he's gone to a lot of success as a coach, but that's what it reminds me of because it was not just that the system was explosive and scored a lot of points. But when I started talking, it wasn't that he was doing something overly complicated, but it was that the way that he was moving things around and communicating, and his kids were able to play really fast, which was the big difference maker. And I remember him saying to me, he's like, "Listen, you could do this with whatever system you want to run. You just have to make sure that you have the ability to communicate quickly, that the play calling's fast, and they understand what they're doing. And you'll probably, he said to me, run the real wing team, not his gun wing stuff, right with it, and do it the same way." So, which I thought was really, really interesting, and it was a great learning point. And it was like, wow. And I think the point about your staff being together for so long, it's huge. Amazing. So it's like a reference point. You guys have a reference point, at all times. That a new guy who comes in, that person can explain that. You get a new guy say, "Hey, we're referencing this, and this is why we do it this way, and that's why we're adding this or whatever it is." With
that, Dave, and to kind of piggyback on that, right? Like I think that's also like something that is so extremely rare, right? Is to have a staff like that, especially when you have those guys in quote unquote key positions in terms of your coordinators, right? Like when those guys at the top, you know what I mean? And the stability across the staff, kind of stays in that same dynamic in terms of just, same verbiage, same, viewpoints on things, right? Like when that stuff stays the same, the stability of that whole aspect just creates just such a large scale of buy-in from the kids, right? Because what one guy is saying is literally what another guy is saying, and then that communication, it's flawless because they've been together for so long that everybody just is always kind of on the exact same page, and they kind of know like, hey, we may have to tweak this year, right? And then can still be on the same page because of that continuity across the board, which is so extremely difficult to keep it in the world of high school football when it comes to that. Now, look, not many guys would want to leave a place like that. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I think just that overall flow of going, kind of keeping it simple and going across like that mindset and that stability, it just adds across the board, you know what I mean, for everybody. Everybody's on the same page. The head coach knows exactly where the coordinators are thinking and all that. Like, and before you even get to any type of in-game situation where, hey, are you thinking this on this, on this right here? And like, okay, yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. You can kind of almost finish each other's sentences, I'm sure, like that type of stuff, which is, just so pivotal.
I think continuity is something that's undervalued in football, especially right now, just the climate that it's in.
Oh yeah,
it's a really big deal. And at Bixby, I think we do. I mean, obviously the success is fun, and that makes people want to stay. But I think another big part is just like we talked about earlier, we want to be the best at developing our student athletes. We want to be the best at developing our coaches. We were just talking about it the other day. We had 9 guys on staff this year calling our offense from 8th grade through the varsity. I think that's a really big deal that we have 9 assistant coaches that are able to call our offense, that understand it well enough, that can they're not just say, "Coach, I want to run power here. How do I call that?" They know how to get to it. They know what formations they want to run it out of. I think that's a really big deal as from 8th all the way up to the varsity level. I think it's also a big deal that our coaches have ownership.
Yes.
it kind of takes
they
away.
feel like they're a piece of it, right? Like they have some say in it and all that kind of stuff. Like, and look, I see that.
We're unmotivated guys, but for me, I never have to fight that. Well, when I get my own program, I'd do it this way.
Right.
If any thought I have that way, I take it to Coach Montgomery and he says, that's a great idea. Let's implement it. Or, yeah, I like where you're thinking, but the reason we can't do that is because of this, because he has a different viewpoint or different knowledge, And I think that goes all the way down. Our assistant coaches on offense, hey, Coach, what do you think about this play? Well, let's give it a shot, man. It's not a dictatorship. They all get a part of it. Something that I work really hard at, I think it's good, is I'll still plays from our freshman team. I'll still plays from our 8th grade.
Yeah.
Because I know those coaches are working really hard at it, and they're not just out there lining up in 2x2, running inside zone every snap because
that's what works, and that's successful, right?
A junior high coach, it doesn't matter. No, they're pushing the envelope. They're shifting in motion, and they're playing multiple quarterbacks on the field at the same time. They're doing the stuff that we do, so we still ideas from them. I remember in 2021, the first play of the state championship game, we ran a trick play. I decided on week 8, watching our freshman team in the biggest game of their season, their district championship, they ran a double pass on the first play of the game, and I was standing on the sideline. I thought, that's brilliant, man. Like, first play of the game, you've got the entire game to make up for it if it doesn't work.
Right.
Like, and you can strike that first. Like, little things like that, I think are big, and I think it's part of what helps build the continuity and what helps guys want to stay at Bixby and those. I mean, I don't think it's because they're unmotivated or they don't want to move up the ladder per se, but I think we offer so many opportunities for guys to continue to grow and be great where they're at.
With that, Coach, how do you break down your staff? How does it work? How do you, like, you know what I mean? Like, in terms of titles and how many guys on each level and whatnot, how do you kind of break it down?
Yeah. So we have, on the varsity staff that are our varsity guys only, I think we have like 11 or 12 now. On offense, we've got quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers, tight end, O-line. So that's 6. So maybe it's 13. On defense, they've got 6 as well, and then a head coach. Our 9th grade staff is completely independent of our varsity staff because they practice at the same time. So they've got their own staff of, gosh, without counting it out, I would guess probably 8 guys, something like that. Yes,
that's amazing.
6 to 8. And we've gotten to the point now where we've got some guys that are volunteering, doing internships while they're graduating college. They want to come start get coached. So a lot of times they're helping out.
That's so cool.
2 of those guys that are helping with our freshman team. And then our 8th grade team is actually, I think we've only got like 2 or 3 8th grade only coaches, but 8th grade practices in the morning. So we have, I think it's 4 or 5 of our varsity coaches coach 8th grade. So like our wide receiver coach is the 8th grade offensive coordinator. Our tight end coach is the 8th grade O-line coach.
See, right? That's awesome. See, that's not a thing here in Jersey. Like the middle school isn't really attached to high school. That's a huge difference, right? Like we're that one, and obviously, yeah, that's so because look, like even Dave coaches, what will be 11-year-olds now. Like that team itself, like those kids will go to a high school around here for the most part, but they don't have really any affiliation,
right,
like directly with that high school program. And that's something that's probably the biggest difference when you start talking state to state.
Yeah.
And then the other part is obviously like the fact that you have, classes in school that are basically, that strength and conditioning class within the day, like that. Those are the biggest differences we see when we've talked program to program across the country, nationally. It's some of those things that
towns are also probably, I would guess that like there's a little bit of space between some of the towns, right? Unless you're unless you're by the city, which allows, I think allows a little bit more community within what you're able to have, like where some of the stuff in Jersey, it could be hard because you're like, they could move. There's so much population in one area.
It's getting that way in Tulsa.
Oh, it is. It is. Okay.
Tulsa's the schools that you've heard about in Oklahoma, most of them are in the Tulsa metro area, right. And it's you cross the street and You know,
Oh,
like,
another school.
Okay.
yeah, the neighborhood I used to live in, like half the neighborhood was Bixby, half the neighborhood was Jinx. You know, like it's
Now, is that a choice, Coach?
There's Union, there's Tulsa Union, Bixby,
Broken Arrow, Owasso are all
yeah, okay.
And now, Coach, are those now do you basically, because it's geographical most times here in Jersey, like if you live in this area or at this address, you go to you go to this high school. Like for me, like the town that I live in, it's a bigger town, right? I mean, and by big, we're saying like maybe 70,000, 75,000 people. There's 2 high schools, right? And based off of geography, if you live, on this side of the street, you go to this high school. If you live on this side of the street, you come to the high school that I coach at. Is that kind of how it's broken up there?
So easy answer, yes. The state of Oklahoma just recently passed, maybe it was 5 years ago, not too long ago, the deal where a child can go to any school they choose if they have the means to get there. So
interesting.
Say I live in a place where the school district isn't as nice and I would like to go to a great school system like Bixby, I can do that.
As long as I can afford or somebody can drive me, right?
Correct. The catch is, though, the school districts have to have an available opening, right? So like Bixby, since I've been at Bixby and the growth that we've been experiencing, we're over capacity.
Right.
I bet.
So to get someone to come in is very difficult. It's very hard for someone to come to Bixby without moving to Bixby. Now, if they live in your district, they're automatically in. They are, you're going to service those that live in your school district.
Of course.
So with the state of Oklahoma changing that rule, the OSSA, the athletics governing board, had to follow suit. So 3 years ago, maybe, they had to make an open transfer policy where you get one free transfer. If you want to change schools without living in that district, you can do so. But again, it goes back to there has to be an open seat at that school. So to transfer into Jinx or Bixby or Owasso is pretty difficult because the class sizes are so big and they're most of them are already over capacity. There aren't open seats per se. So it makes
How about the building itself physically? Like, is it like bursting at the seams? Like, like there's only so much room actually in a school that, you can house however many kids in the cafeteria or the auditorium or just whatever it is. Like physically, you see that. Yeah, I mean, some schools I've been in, you see kids are eating lunch in the hallways because there's just not enough seats in the freaking cafeteria.
Yeah, in Bixby, we just finished a brand new high school. It opened last year, and it was actually like an addition to the old high school still exists. Like they just moved, so that's helped a lot. And now it's very weird to me, but in 2025, with all the virtual classes, they're able to accommodate kids in different ways that way. With kids taking the online stuff, where you don't actually need a physical classroom and a physical seat for them to sit in. But it still goes back to those numbers, enrollment numbers. What you've determined is your capacity, and do you have open seats, whether it's a physical seat or a virtual seat.
Interesting.
Really, really, really interesting. Really, really. Tulsa's a great place, Derek. Have you ever been there?
Come on, dude. Really?
It's a great place.
Shit. If it's not Florida or, like northeast of where I got on the bus and traveled, dude, never been.
I've run quite a few showcases out there back in the day. Great athletes actually out there. Great athletes. It's really, really it's interesting how Tulsa's evolved, right? Like it was like a cowboy town, but it's like kind of like hipsterish kind of right? Am I right?
Yeah. It's probably Tulsa's different than the rest of Oklahoma.
Right.
It's a little bit different.
That's a good way to put it. That's a great way to in the nicest sense. That is extremely. That's very good.
Great. It's a great place. I think it's definitely a growing area too. It definitely is. So I'm curious now. What do you guys have at like the lower levels, like below the middle school? Do you guys have a relationship with the kids at the youth level? How does that work? Do they run your system or a version of your system?
Yeah. So I think that's something that's a little bit overblown. People around here, people in Oklahoma, those Bixby kids have been running the same system since they're in second grade, and that's not true, right? Like, those coaches are coaching what they know, what they're comfortable coaching, what they're good at coaching, but we do have a lot of interaction with those guys. So a couple of the things that we do, we host clinics every spring. We'll have an offensive night and a defensive night where we invite all of the youth coaches. We'll kind of just give them like, hey, this is our base stuff. This is the base way that we call things. For example, our run plays are NFL teams. So like, hey, if you guys want to run crisscross counter, that's fine. But if you could name it an NFL team, that would be cool, because then the kids understand how that works, right? Instead of, the system I grew up running, 26 blast. If you want to call it that, that's fine. We're not saying, but if you want to help the kids, maybe this is kind of some of the base stuff, that you might run or might call it, but do your stuff, do what you're comfortable with. And then we do the same thing with the defense, with the clinic. And then once we get to season, each one of our coaches, so 8th grade through varsity, whatever, there are 25 of us total, I think, something like that. We'll each have a youth team that they know that if they ever need to reach out, if they got questions, that we can correspond with them. And there's been years where I send them an email and say, hey, coach, I'm kind of your liaison this year. If you guys need anything, reach out.
That's really cool.
I don't ever hear from them, and that's fine. And then there's times where they're emailing back and forth and, hey, coach, can I come up and talk with you about this that we're trying to do or whatever?
It's just really cool.
And then our kids, we assign it based on roster number, obviously, but it's about 4 or 5 kids per youth team. And so they'll go out and go to some of the practices. We've had some that take it so serious that they end up like becoming assistant coaches and help coach and are teaching the verbiage that we use, or they're teaching the techniques that we use, which is really cool. But then they'll also we get the player cards made, that look like the old football trading cards that we grew up buying. I guess they're getting kind of popular again, but they'll be Bixby Spartan cards, and they'll go out and deliver the player of the game from the youth games that weekend. They'll go out to their next practice and take a pack of cards for the player of the game or whatever. So yes, we have a lot of interaction with our youth program, and I think it's a really big deal, and we host camps for them. But I do think it's a little bit overblown when people say, yeah, those kids at Bixby, they've been running that same system since second grade. That's a little bit of a fallacy, not quite the whole truth, but they are a part of the Bixby Spartan football program since second grade. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
No, yeah, that's phenomenal. I mean, I think that whether it's interaction, whether it's plays, whether the kids look up to obviously the players that are above them, and I think that always makes a big difference. Last question I have is, what does the future look like for you guys? You've had so much success over the last decade. What does the future look, and what are some things that you guys are hoping to knock down in the future that maybe you haven't?
Oh man, that's a tough one, right? Every year it's a new challenge. We lost a lot of guys off of this year's team, so it's going to be a different look next year. Kind of figuring out who are our good players, what are they good at, building off of that. But that's kind of every year, right, at the high school level, because like we said, we don't get to go with a dual threat 6 foot.
Would be nice, right? It would definitely be nice.
Yeah.
Make the job a lot easier.
Right. So we'll be doing with that. Our staff is really big on continuing education, continual growth mindset. So we'll go to clinics. We try to let our guys speak at clinics as often as possible. I think it's good because it's a great way to sell our brand of football, to promote Bixby Spartan football. But I think also, as a guy that's gotten to speak at a few clinics, it really forces you to do a deep dive into what you do. It makes you go back and look at plays a little bit differently. How did we get to that play? Why did we get to that play? I need to be able to explain this to a group full of coaches, So I think it makes you a better coach in that aspect. So we'll be doing that kind of stuff in the spring like we normally do. And then as a program, we just finished our end zone facility last season. So we're in a brand new end zone facility. I say brand new. It's remodeled and added on to, but super nice. Probably the best. I tell people it's the 3rd best locker room in the state, behind the University of Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Like it's super nice. Our kids are spoiled. Our coaches' offices, our coaches are spoiled. So we just got that finished, and now we're looking towards the next step, which will be on the next bond in the next few years, which would be a new stadium, rebuilt. It's the same stadium, but redoing the stadium, press box, and looking to do an indoor facility. So that's on the horizon. That's a ways off, but that's kind of where we're looking to go or hoping to go. I actually just spent the day yesterday touring some facilities in Texas, some of those monster ones down there, with our administration, getting ideas, what's reasonable, what fits what we need, what's the best way to go about doing it. So we're at the very early preliminary stages, but that's kind of what's on the horizon for the program.
You guys going to build like an Allen or a Frisco over there at Bixby land?
The one thing that we talk about all the time is some of those really big, nice stadiums are too big.
I agree. I concur.
Stadium than the Taj Mahal.
I totally concur. And Tyler, we talk about it all the time because here in Jersey, like, there's nothing that kind of even compares to that. But when they play their state finals game, like, they either play it at MetLife, which is where the Jets and Giants play, or they play it at Rutgers. And look, even for the biggest games of the state, like, this is the state championship games, you put 10,000 people in one of those places and it's still like crickets, So in comparison to kind of that, you still want that high school feel to it. But, to play at a pro stadium or to play at a Big Ten school stadium is a big deal, right? And
it's cool.
For those kids,
downside,
100.
One of the best things they did in Oklahoma in 2019, they moved all state championship games to the University of Central Oklahoma, which is a super nice Division II campus. They've redone their stadium. It's very nice, but it's appropriately sized. So the crowds are feel big. They're nice. And it's really cool having all the state championship games at the same place because now, as a fan, you get to watch them all. The year before that, 2018, I remember we were playing against Stillwater in the state championship and at Owasso, and then across town, I think it was Broken Arrow and Jinx were playing in a state championship. So like if you're just a Tulsa football fan,
like a fan,
you got to choose one, right? Like I can go to Owasso and watch this one, or I can go over here and watch this one. Whereas now they're all at the same place. So you go sit at UCO for 3 days and watch 6 football games, and it's awesome. Kind of the Texas model a little bit, which which is really cool.
Yeah, no, I look at it, but that's so cool too. They do a little bit of that. They usually use both of those sites depending on, when the Jets and the Giants are playing. It's not, we're not ever worried about Rutgers really playing a home game at that point because that's just, they'll never. That is what it is. But they kind of bounce them around from those two places and, travel in here and it's just different. You know what I mean? I always felt like those smaller, close knit, because we have a ton of Division III programs here in the state, which their facilities would house a state championship game and it would feel phenomenal. And they've done that in years past. But, sometimes for the kids, the appeal of playing in a NFL stadium or that big time is that. But, when you get there, it's kind of, hey, like, this isn't, this feels different, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely a good move. Like I said, sometimes they overthink it, which I think we do as coaches anyway. Like, all we do is overthink things.
Yeah.
No doubt. Well, it's been great having you on. Amazing stuff. I think that what you guys are doing, you're very humble, by the way, Coach. So, very humble. But what you guys are doing is really, really. It's not just innovative, but it's a standard of excellence that is really, really phenomenal. It's high, and it's like I said, like it's actually an even longer run than what Gus Malzahn had, but it reminds me of that. It's a combination of innovation and steadfast resolve, standards, and, putting in the work. And I think that's, and investing in the kids, man. Like, you guys are investing in the kids. And that's the most important thing. I think kids recognize it. People don't realize that kids recognize when you invest in them and you invest in the opportunities, for them to succeed. Even if their parents don't recognize it right away, the kids do, right? So they
with that, right? When you win football games, the parents are a little easier to jump on board, right? So that's helped. Not always, but.
No, you're 100% right. It's not always. I guess the biggest issue you guys have to deal with is you guys are winning so much that if you all of a sudden you lost a game, guys are like, oh, what's going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we had some interesting comments whenever our win streak broke a few years ago and we lost the game. We were all idiots all of a sudden, which
right. Well, we all know, Coach, that the best coaches are in the stands on Friday night.
Right. Well, what they didn't know is we were idiots all along. We just happened to be winning,
Yeah.
We've been idiots the whole time.
I think too, Coach, one thing, and I'll end with this, and that adds to the appeal and all of that, is for the way you guys function and the way you guys run that offense, allowing so many guys to touch the ball in key positions, I think just really plays along with for the state of what we're dealing with in terms of kids nowadays, where, you know what I mean? Like, being involved in actually like touching the ball and doing all of those things, like where they can actually feel like they're a part of it, or, hey, I'm in on this package or that. Using so many guys, I think just adds to what we're dealing with. You know what I mean? Like, because how many guys go at it and say, all right, like, they go across and it's like, hey, we need these guys to get this many touches or these guys are this touch. There's so much more to it in terms of, hey, for some places now, like if that guy's not getting the ball or not, whatever, he's going to up and leave. And now you're dealing with so many of those types of issues, not that we deal with that much on the high school level, but it calms everybody in terms of, hey, look, like there are 8 guys that aren't listed as the starting quarterback that have taken snaps this year, or, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that adds to it a little bit, right? It kind of helps the program just getting guys involved. So I think that's,
had that discussion with guys before, who's your starting tight end? And we'll define that. What does starting mean? Like for the very first play of the game, is that the starter, or who plays the most snaps, or who's in the most packages? Like, I don't know. A few years ago, we didn't this year because we had a senior that was pretty good. But a couple years ago when we were playing a 3-quarterback system, who's your starter? What do you mean by that? The guy that takes the first snap? Sure, he is.
He's going to be out there on the first series.
Yeah,
but
next
then,
week it might be a different guy.
First series, you might have 3 guys taking a snap. So what the hell? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so who's the starter? I get it.
And we did that in state semifinal game 2 years ago against the Wausau. We had all 3 quarterbacks played on the opening drive of the game.
Right.
And it wasn't designed. That's just the way the play calls went. So I think a lot of times the starter in the game of football gets overblown, right?
I agree.
The way you personnel package and everything, like what does the starter even mean? Are you a player? Do you get to play on Friday nights? And are you involved?
Do you contribute? I mean, look, and we all know that it's the ultimate team game of where guys can contribute in ways where they're not getting all the shine, but just for the way with social media and all the, likes and all that other shit. Like, yeah, dude, like you scored it. Like you may have not been in on the first series, but you scored touchdowns, or you touched the ball 10 times. Like, you know what I mean? Like that whole dynamic of like finding a way to get the team camaraderie without, being traditional and like, how that team was set up. Like you guys do it with this new school tweak to it that I think is really appealing.
Grouping.
Yeah. I mean,
it's all groupings. It's what group you're
100%.
in. And there are different groups that there are ebbs and flows in the game. And this group might be rolling one game and that they play more snaps this game. And the starting group may not play as much. And there's different groups. And I think that's the beauty of what you guys do. And people don't realize, this is more for parents and fans, I would say, don't understand how important what groupings are. They don't really understand that even defensively you could do it this way too. But obviously you do it depending on pass or run or whatever. But substitution-wise. But offensively, groupings are so powerful. And
absolutely.
That is the ability to that gives the opportunity to kids and parents and fans. It takes a while fans may never understand it, but parents, it may take a while for them to understand what groupings are and my kid's in this group and he's not in that group. And like, does that mean it means nothing? It means that he's in this group because this group has a purpose. Each group has a purpose. And I think you guys have you do a phenomenal job of that. Like, I mean, maybe the best in the country at it, so it's cool. And I think people have pride in that, right? Like kids have pride in their groups.
Yeah.
Damn right.
We saw that this year, our jumbo package, right? When you run in the extra tight ends and fullbacks or whatever. Well, we had a kid that was his only job on the team was the jumbo fullback. But I can guarantee you he knew exactly what to do on every single play, and he knew what the other guys were supposed to do, and he took charge of it, and he was coaching them up. Like, that was a really big deal for him. And I can guarantee you anytime we called for Jumbo, he was out there. He wasn't ever the guy, getting a drink of water or being distracted. Like, those guys are dialed in. Kind of talking about the starter deal. In 2024, we had a wide receiver that probably was on the field for our first snap of the game as many as, the majority of the games. I think he had one catch on the year. But he did all the little things right. He blocked really well. He knew how to get lined up. And then we've got a defensive back that's a really, really good athlete, but we couldn't burn him up on offense. He had way more touchdowns, way more catches, but he wasn't the quote-unquote starting wide receiver.
Right.
And that goes back to what does starting mean? Who cares? It doesn't matter. Be in your role and be the best you can be in your role.
No doubt.
Well, listen, that rank, record, and publish, we talk about it all the time. That adds a ton of value to whatever it is. And look, in the traditional sense of a depth chart, right? Like that you don't want to, or just putting that list up there where those guys can look and compare and see where they're at. Like, it's a big influencer for those guys.
Oh yeah.
No doubt. Well, Coach, thanks so much for coming on, and obviously much continued success. You guys do a fantastic job. You do a fantastic job as the OC, and we'll see you soon down the line. I'm definitely gonna be in touch to come out there and maybe spend some time with you guys, a little bit of time, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Open door here at Bixby.
Awesome. Great, Tyler.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you, buddy. Absolutely. Have a good holiday, buddy.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye. That was great.
Yeah. It's awesome.
No. Oh, yeah. There's no doubt.
There's nothing like stability within a staff, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing that could overcome that when, like, you have the same dudes speaking the same language. I really loved his idea of assigning some of those players to the youth teams. I thought that was a really, really nice little piece of the puzzle. Like, yeah, you guys, like, look, this is your team, and as much as you like, here's the minimums of what you have to do. But if you want to do more or whatever, because look, some of those guys that have maybe a younger brother or somebody's involved in that, like, those dudes roll up, like, for some of these youth kids, like, that's the hero, right? Like, they are the NFL player. Like, that's how they look at them. And then, hey, this guy's at my practice. You know what I'm saying? Like, makes you just want to continue that. Like, I can't wait to be a Bixby Spartan.
No doubt about it. I love watching what they do, and
it's exciting.
It's exciting. So
one word, baby. That one word stuff, I love it.
Yeah, well, yeah, where you were a big one word guy like that. I mean, I've started to do a lot more
formation, play direction, play.
Yeah.
Right? So there was three pieces to it, but I mean, after a while, it was basically, formation. That was it. You know what I mean? And then a play call, like, and then or a number. It was formation, number, because on our wrist, we would have a wristband that gave us play direction and play call. Like, that was it, and you were rocking and rolling. So I just love that. I also like that he kind of, a lot of these guys are like, well, we got to make it a certain way and it's got to be as simple as possible. But like, when you know your players and know, like, hey, these kids are smart and they want to be a part, like, they'll get it. Like, he can add that, you know what I mean? And you've always been big with tags and that type of stuff. Like, we can get to anything as long as guys understand tags within the play calls and within what we're doing. We can get to anything from anywhere that we're at. It might not be the optimal, you know what I mean, personnel in the game because of a grouping, but ultimately using tags, we can get what we want to get with what we have.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Yeah, it's great stuff. It's interesting because I am always amazed that more people don't do it, but there's a lot of fear in football. There's a lot of
coaches coach from a sense of fear. They're scared about.
Well, the word is, I say, it's scared. You see this a lot more in youth, like in youth, because in high school, guys push them. There'll always be the appearance that coaches are pushing kids in high school because, there is more talking, communicating. Kids communicate back at a at older ages.
Right.
But what you don't realize is that because they're talking, you don't realize that some coaches really aren't pushing the envelope enough, right?
No.
You wouldn't know unless you were in it, like from place
Correct.
to place.
Right.
Because someone can have a lot of talent and they may not be pushing as hard, right? Like,
right, because they just went off of what they have. You know what I mean? Like some guys, you're like, sometimes this was one of the biggest eye openers for me, right? Was when I went to Bosco, right? And I'm there for a year, and I get in there, and you're thinking like, here these guys are, right? Like national high school champs and all of this big time, like, and you get there and you're kind of like, wait, this is all we do. Like this is, now I'm not saying like, whatever, but there was no intricate type of like this, that, and whatever. And we know Jimmy's and Joe's play a huge role, but it was the same type of thing. Like, okay, like you're not overcomplicating things. You're not some elaborate extravaganza of X's and O's. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was eye-opening. That sometimes it's like, hey, like guys win so many different ways. And sometimes the hardest working guys are the ones that don't make the playoffs or, whatever. And then some of the guys that are doing the bare minimum or whatever are state champs on the regular. And you're like, okay, well, it's just, you know what I mean? There's a million ways to do it.
There's a lot to it. Sometimes guys are better at culture and they're not that, great at the other part of it. And they do great job on culture. But when you get a group like Bixby that does almost all of it really well, it's
right.
It's an engine. It's an engine that's hard to stop.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's a freaking freight train, dude.
It's a freight train. So that's the difference. Like you could have a guy who's great motivated, but maybe he's not the greatest X and O's. He gets good athletes. He knows how to get them going. Like get to a championship, or
that's also where I think of like your staff and as a head coach knowing maybe your weakness, like like hey, like like hey, this guy is gonna be the guy that like for us, example, like you know what I mean, like the pregame speech before we go out and play a game does not come from the head coach. You know what I'm saying? Like he is not that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, he don't. He barely. I mean, shit, dude. Like, I maybe once or twice I've seen him give a pregame speech in the 2 years that we've been there. He's just that's not who he is. So
that's not his thing.
There's other guys on the staff that like, and he knows that. It's not like he's, you know what I mean. He doesn't try to force feed something. He doesn't try to be what he isn't. He knows exactly who he is as a head coach and kind of how things work and what he does, and he does a great job at it. But the roles within a staff, that's why you put together certain staffs in a certain way, right? Guys fill kind of those needs, or, hey, we need this. Maybe I'm weak at something in this area or whatever. That's why, as a younger guy coming through the ranks, like you kind of want to wear a lot of hats. You want to see kind of how that is and develop who you are and whatnot. And I'm not saying you don't partake in some of those other things. You just kind of know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you kind of just work along with it and fit it all into a puzzle.
There's no doubt. I mean, I think that's I think knowing what you are and what you aren't is important. It's great. They have a great staff. That's a continuity.
It will always not boggle me, but just to see how the middle school programs are tied into high schools in other states in comparison to how it is here in Jersey. Right. Where you literally have some middle school teams that have zero affiliation or contact with high school teams in where those kids are going to go until they get there. Like, to me, it's just mind boggling. You know what I'm saying? Like for how polar opposite it is.
A lot. And
I agree.
Coaches maybe are afraid to, I don't want to get into the whole psyche of, because it is hard to figure out, but yeah, you're right. It is a hard thing to wrap your head around as to why.
And then you guys want to wonder why teams are developed and understand and all that kind of stuff. Like they have that strength and conditioning class within school day. So those multi-sport guys, if anything, I thought one of the things that was great too was when he talked about spring ball and their practices, like where some of those other guys that play other sports aren't there. Well, that just allows your other guys to get more work. It's
Right.
why they feel comfortable with 15 different guys scoring touchdowns in a season, because those other guys get those reps within, and it's not just, go out on the field and kind of walk through plays. It's no, we have helmets on and this is football practice. And then we get to have a camp where you're banging around and getting those reps early on that, it's just not allowed here in Jersey or in some states because you don't have spring ball. You have all these rules and stipulations. Like, there's a lot that goes into it, but it's really just, it's mind boggling. And guys want to wonder why other states are ahead of certain states. Like, that's why, right? They have access to the game more.
Well, one of the things like with Louisiana and in Oklahoma, being near Texas, you're very close. And even Arkansas, you can see if you're close to a state that has a huge amount of, obviously is always invested incredibly heavily in football. So when you're near it and you're like, hey, we're having success, like what more could we do? I mean, it's not a far trek to go and say, okay, let's go down here and figure out,
Right.
what these guys did. How did you raise the money to do this? How did you know what I'm saying? Like, how did you do those kind of things?
If it's working for them, like, it's going to work it can work some way. Like, let's at least figure it out. Exactly.
You just have to, there's not many people getting on a plane and going to Texas, the educators that are going to be like, hey, how can we do this in New Jersey? It's just not going to happen. But if you live in Texas or Louisiana, although I think there's no excuse for it, by the way, but if you live in Texas, Louisiana, or Oklahoma or Arkansas, you're very close. You can see it. I have to say, even in New Mexico, when we used to run events in New Mexico, there were a couple places outside Albuquerque, like that were, I guess, the suburban areas.
Right.
Dude, they had unbelievable. It's not like New Mexico is any hotbed for producing.
No.
You could not believe some of the facilities they had there in the summer. And I was like, my gosh, this is way better than like a much better looking facility and complex than New Jersey. And it's not like, but they even in even in New Mexico, right? You're next to West Texas. You can go see a West Texas school and see what they have, right? And you could be like, oh wow, okay, can we do that here? What does it cost? What do we need to do? Right? They're not going to make it as big as some of those big West Texas facilities, but you're going to do that. And so that's a culture out there in the Southwest. Correct. That is that is big, and football really is I mean, you would love Tulsa. Tulsa's I called on the road. That was one of the sleeper great places to go. Like it did have like
no one would expect this to be awesome, and this is awesome.
And I loved Oklahoma City too. They're like a mix. They're a mix of the old Oklahoma, cowboy, and with a lot of new, like, kind of like, I don't know, I would say like Nashville-ish kind of things where it's like, I don't want to say hipster, but that's the only way I could think. I'm too old to like think of it. Hipster is like, when they're kind of like a little bit like they're trying. Some of the younger kids are trying to be cool. You know what I mean? Like,
right? Yeah. I get it. Well, I mean, you've also seen some of these areas like start to boom with population. You know what I'm saying? Like now, a lot like
yes.
Even like areas within Texas, or you know what I mean? Like, I mean, we've had numerous guys that have been on and talked about how, just the overall population boom of some of their areas have started to affect how things are. And I mean, shit, we've seen it here in Central Jersey with a population since COVID. You know what I'm saying? Like, so even within a state that can't really house more people, like we still continue to kind of get more and more and go from there. I mean, it's wild.
Tulsa. That's Tulsa. You know what movie?
Tulsa King itself probably added a bunch of people to freaking go move to Tulsa after getting all that.
You know what movie takes place in Tulsa? It's a book, and you definitely watched it, and you're from New Jersey, so you probably love it, just like I did. Although you are younger, so but you're not that much younger.
Don't doubt
me. What's that?
I said, don't doubt me.
The movie it stars C. Thomas Howell and Ralph Macchio. And
The Outsiders.
Yes, The Outsiders takes place in Tulsa. And what's interesting, because he was talking about how like Bixby is and Owasu and Jenks, and it reminds me of Tulsa back then. Even that's supposed to take place in like the 50s, I think.
Right. Yeah. Right around that.
Well, remember the Socias and the
Yep.
Greasers, right? The Greasers were really kind of the inner city Tulsa kids, and the Socias were the suburban Tulsa kids, right? And back then it was probably one side of town poor, the other side of town wealthy, right? And
correct.
But that's what it was. Right. And if you remember, like the one guy, the guy played by he died. Patrick Swayze. Patrick Swayze is like the big brother, and he knew the Socias because he played football with them. They played football together. So I thought it was. I always think back to like Tulsa's like an interesting place from that standpoint. Like even back in the time where it wasn't like this norm, like you saw that kind of separation more in the Northeast. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. Well, yeah, you see class separation here big time.
It's not as big in the Midwest or the Southwest
because you're so spread out.
Spread out, right? You're so spread out. But that was the big part of the movie. The two gangs were like the Greasers and the Socias, which were the wealthy kids, and then the kids who were like, I guess, the poorer kids. So really interesting stuff. That place is it's a pretty cool. There's a lot of cool places to eat there, and it's so easy. You could stay like right downtown, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm staying downtown. Like it's. You're
like, wait, this is the city part. Yeah, you're like, this is downtown.
Yeah, because the city's huge, but the
not huge into
downtown is not.
Dude, I mean, we are so. If you only grew up here in Jersey, all you know is New York City, right? So like you're talking about one of the biggest cities in the world, and you compare everything to New York City, and it's a fucking joke, dude. It's like, some of these places like, I gotta go to the city, and you're like, it has one building. Like Newark is bigger than most of these cities. Like, or like any of that.
Especially the downtown, right? So the Tulsa downtown, although they were building, I haven't been there probably 10 years, but they were building a lot when I was there. I'm sure in 10 years a lot more has been built, but like the downtown was just like starting to rebirth. You know what I mean? Like because it kind of was. People didn't live downtown; they lived on the outskirts, and it was I don't know. Their zip code might be Tulsa, but Tulsa zip code is like, why, dude? It's like this is.
Well, that's the difference for us. You walk 500 feet and you're in 3 different towns because we're so compact in the population density. It's like we talk about being up north and every town has a high school and all this other. I mean, you could take probably an entire county, and that's the size of like one of their high schools. You know what I'm saying? Like, and here that's 7.
That he said that they did. Now that's starting to have, like, they're having a lot more crosstown stuff and next town over stuff, which is interesting because when this population booms, that's what happens. And it's interesting seeing his face on that because the people are probably like, oh my God, there's so much traffic here in Tulsa. You know what I mean? So it's probably
right. Meanwhile, you're like, let me talk about traffic.
Like even Middletown. Middletown and Brick. It's like. Oh, the traffic in Middletown.
It takes me literally 20 minutes to get across town. It's just like, driving through Wayne. You know what I mean? Like you're going from one side of town to the other. Depending on time, it might take you 30 minutes to go 3 miles.
A couple of weeks ago, I think St. Leo's played at what's the Catholic? It's our only loss this year in basketball. It's St. Dominic. Is that in Brick?
Yes.
Yeah, St. Dominic. I couldn't believe once I got in the Brick, like, oh my gosh, it takes so like traffic's moving so slow,
You
St.
get
Dominic
one bad thing going on either too, buddy, and it's like, oh shit, like, you know what I'm saying?
St. Dominic has some good athletes in it. Really, some good athletes.
It's not the issue here. It's just a matter of where they go, buddy.
Oh, their center, by the way, who was a 6th grader.
Yeah.
His father was like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. This kid was I have no idea who he plays youth football. I know he definitely plays football. I have no idea who he plays youth football for, where he lives in Brick. But let me tell you something. Everybody walked out of there.
Say this guy.
This kid is stud. He was athletic, huge. Okay, he was the biggest kid on the court. He was also maybe the most athletic, and he looked like he was an O-line or D lineman. He was fast, dude. He brought fast, like running fast, like get up the court fast. You know what I mean?
Where did you play? You played there?
We played there. Like, I don't know Brick that well as far as
because there's a bunch of middle schools. There's also a PAL building. Like, like I said, Dave, it's the easiest comparison to compare it to the size of Wayne up north. Like, it's the same type of setup. Middletown, yep, 2 high schools. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't tell you how many
get
times.
in there, I don't know where I am. Like, I don't know where I am.
Well, obviously, you've been to the middle school or like the middle school field, football. Right? Which is like Drum Point with the turf and all that. And there's like 1,000 fields around it. Yes. That's like, that's our side of town, more towards like the water, whereas the other side is like, now if you're coming like down the Parkway, like exit 91, because there's 2 Brick exits, right? So exit 91 is more Brick.
We got off to go to St. Dominic,
right? And but that's because you go like kind of like a little bit like a back way, right? Like more towards like Point Pleasant, that type of thing. Whereas if you kept going down to like exit 89, you literally past like my high school is right off the Parkway. Like, you see it, you know what I mean? Like, you see the field, you see the school itself, and that's more on that side.
Right. I've been there.
But look, there's no lack of area or space within where it's at. You know what I'm saying? It's just a matter of like what gets done with it and all that. And then obviously the boom of keep moving south now towards like Lacey area, Manahawkin, which is now like into your, getting closer to Egg Harbor type, like that's like Barnegat type, now. Like booming, right? Like, just it's off the chip, everything keeps moving south, buddy.
Well, yeah, because like, for example, Middletown is close to capacity, dude. Like
has to be. And there's nowhere to go. That's the difference in Jersey.
We don't have as much land as you have, okay?
But here's the thing too, even when
you guys are near capacity, probably, right?
Right. Now you're starting to see people like now buildings are going up, and you're talking not just 2 stories, like 3 stories and 4, like things are starting to go up to the sky, just like up north when there's no more land. Whereas the only place to put somebody is on top of other people. And now you start to see that whole thing kind of run with it. And, it's also the dynamic has changed in terms of like, this used to be like a big, like, hey, even though it's a big town, we still have a lot of seasonal, like second home type places. Like, COVID pushed those people to be like, nope, this is my home now. Right. Like, and I'm not, I don't need 2 houses. I'm going to live here full time, whether they have kids or not. And, look, as long as they're willing to still pay those taxes, like, I'm all good with it.
Right. That's the only thing, our taxes.
Like, hey, I'm paying taxes on a school that I don't even have any kids at, but like, you can't plow my road. Like,
or you can imagine being me. We pay taxes and our kid doesn't go to the school. Okay.
There you go too. Right. But so we're back tomorrow, 10 a.m. with Coach Andrew Brookies, who is the QC for Richmond University. So obviously coached 2 of our players this year, and is in a different type of QC role, which it'll be great since we just had Scotty on Monday to have him on Friday. We kind of bumped it up so that we can kind of get the same compare and contrast in terms of how quality control guys work at 2 different spots and whatnot. And he obviously deals with linebackers specific in his role at Richmond. So excited to talk to him. Also, the guy that he worked for just took a co-DC job at JMU. So be interesting to see kind of what his role is going to be moving forward in terms of that now with a position coach leaving. So all good, buddy.
Good stuff, man. All right. I do want to touch base with you on what did get covered in the AFCA. Are there any positions that have not the shore? I don't think any shore positions opened up.
But like coaching gigs?
Yeah, I was curious.
Like open spots?
Yeah.
Not really. There hasn't been much turnover this year.
No, I don't think
you know what I'm saying?
not yet. At least, I guess not yet.
I mean, yeah, I think guys are. You know how it is. Everybody kind of shuts it down for winter
and then
break
January
or whatever. Right. And then everybody's like, oh shit, like maybe we should make a move, or maybe we'll find whatever. Definitely not anything that would like jump off the. You know what I mean? Like that we would know about.
Well, last year was big with all kinds of shocking. Although that didn't happen till most of them didn't happen till almost January though.
I mean, now look, there's assistant gigs all over. You know what I'm saying? Like there is nothing. I mean, there's assistant coaches all over the place that anybody wants to be an assistant here or there. It's the head stuff that's kind of like, what are we doing? And not much down here, really.
Last year there was a ton of turnover. Last year there was a lot of turnover. I mean, I guess it's year to year. All right, we will
see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Awesome.